Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to 3D Maker Salon.
I'm Joanna.
I'm Sprinjo, and this is episode 23 of Geeetech
Yes.
3D Maker Salon. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to whenever you are from. If you are joining and watching this live streaming, please share this live streaming to your friends or your group or your storyline. Thank you.
Yes, and during our live stream, we will have quiz section for you to win our gifts for free.
Yes.
So please help share our live stream to your timeline and the groups to invite more friends.
And in 3D Maker Salon, in every week we have at least one live streaming to talk about something interesting related to 3D printing. And sometimes, like this week, we're gonna to invite a very special guest who is specialized in using 3D printing into his hobby. Is like astronomy. So, are you guys interested? And welcome to share with your friends and also your group or your timeline.
Yes, and if you are interested in one special field and can combine 3D printing to your own hobby, to your own field, you can also share your story with us. So welcome to be our speaker. You can contact Spring and also apply on our official website to be our speaker to share on this channel.
Yes, we have heard a lot of people using 3D printing in different hobbies, and
yes,
and so in this episode, we are gonna to invite William Finn, who is
from USA,
and he has more than 3 years experience in 3D printing. He likes to using 3D printing for making some parts and modifications for his telescope. It's a very, and also he has a very special project specifically made for to make the blinds, help blinds to feel the things around them by using 3D printing. So let's. Without further ado, we'd like to invite William to our live streaming.
Yeah, welcome. Hello, William.
Hello, William. Good evening. Oh, William, you are muted.
I'm sorry. Good. Hello again.
So excited to invite you to join us.
It's fun to be here.
Yeah. After listening to your exciting project to helping the blinds, we feel so honored to have this story sharing with more people and also your own experience in 3D printing. And could you please introduce a little bit about yourself and your background in 3D printing?
Sure. Well, I'm a computer engineer. Is my background. I've been doing 3D printing for many years. It started out doing 3D printing because of astronomy. People like some stuff. Some people like, and some people really love different things they do. I'm totally obsessed when it comes to astronomy. I'm beyond like or love. I'm totally obsessed. It's not just looking through a telescope. It's the physics involved. It's the science involved. I've always been I'm a nerd, and I'm happy to announce I'm a nerd. So so I've always been into science. I've always been into astronomy, and some of the parts that you need for astronomy, you can't always customize what you're looking for. You want to make changes to your telescope. You want to tweak it. You can't always find the part you need. So I kind of got into 3D printing to try and help me along with that, to design and build my own parts to add enhancements to my telescope. Now, you don't make changes to the scope itself, but you add bits and pieces to make other things easier and to make your life easier, and sometimes automate some stuff.
That's
Absolutely. From what's your background? As you are having a very beautiful background.
Oh, you mean behind me? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
the wall,
my wall
painting.
of science.
yeah, wall of science in 3D.
Well, yeah, I'm big into like I do. I'm a solar system ambassador for NASA. NASA's JPL, or Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So I do outreach for NASA, and so I go into the community, talk about space and science, and I print 3D models to show them stuff. Not only models of spacecraft, which I show you them, but I have others that I have 3D models of science experiments that we actually use to demonstrate different aspects of science. So this one over here is a Lego Saturn V rocket. And then, but most of the rest of the stuff that I have behind me, all the rest of the stuff I've actually 3D printed myself. So the Falcon 9 is my own.
To share what you have there on your behind. So,
okay. So let's start off with the rockets, which would be the easiest one to start with. So this is as I said, it's the Saturn V from Lego. It's 1,969 pieces. But all the rest of them are 3D printed. So this is a model of the upcoming SLS rocket from NASA that they're building right now. On the other side, I have. Let me move this. This is a 3D printed SpaceX Saturn V rocket. This is printed from PETG, using PETG because I wanted it strong. Right now, SpaceX are building a new rocket called the Starship. This is a model of, well, one of the potential models of what a Starship will look like when it's done. This is done out of PET. This is done at PLA, and it's the shiny silver Geeetech PLA I use for this, and it came out really nice, lovely finish. I also using the shiny silver. I did a model I take with me a lot is the Hubble Space Telescope model. It's a nice display model for kids to look at and play with, and they touch and they see what it's made, how it works, and you can use it to explain how that telescope works. I also do a lot of parts. I'll talk more about those in a moment, but I do a lot of parts as well for my telescope, which is a big area that I spend a lot. I use PLA for prototyping. I don't actually manufacture or make usable parts much out of PLA. Because PLA is brittle; it can break. It has heat problems, so you expose it to a lot of heat. It'll warp and bend and twist. So I don't use a lot of PLA for that, for practical usable parts, but I use them for prototyping. So this is for one of my telescopes. This is a mount that goes onto the leg of the telescope, and the hand controller for my telescope sits in here. So this is made out of PLA, but the final part of this I actually did with PETG. These are some. There's like a bracket, again, prototyped in PLA, because my telescope often spends a lot of time outside in the sun during the day to be set up, and the heat is not good. Now, you can get away with white PLA during the day in the sun, depending on how hot it gets, but generally, PLA is a bad idea for anywhere you're just going to be exposed to the heat. PETG is far better because it's got heat resistance. So I tend to prototype in PLA, and then finish off my parts. My final parts are printed in PETG. I find that works best because I can print faster with PLA. You could print almost twice as fast with PLA as you can with PETG. So you print it fast, test it. If it works, then you do a final version on it with a better material.
That's cool. Since that in the beginning, I think it's very interesting that you can connect your hobby into 3D printing. And Could you tell us a little bit about what's your initial motivation to do 3D printing at the first place, and how did you connect it with your hobby?
Well, this part was the first reason why, because my telescope, when I got my telescope, my computerized telescope, it had no way to hold the hand controller. That nothing came with it, and I needed to figure out and find a way of doing so. And nobody was selling a part online that you could buy that would do the work. And with some research, I heard that people were actually making components using 3D printing. So I decided it might be worth trying. So my first printer I actually bought used. Actually, I didn't even buy it. I traded something I had on Facebook, I traded with somebody else for a 3D printer. And that's how I got my 3D printer. I didn't even buy my first printer. It was actually through a trade. And I printed my first design part to hold my hand controller. And then I started then other things happened in like astronomy. Most of it's done at nighttime, so you lose parts, you drop parts, and you can't find them in the dark. So, and one of the big ones that people tend to lose a lot of is covers for the eyepieces, the top and bottom covers. So now I can just print them. I can print replacements. So now I don't have to go off and find somewhere to buy them online. I can just make them myself. You can just run them off in a printer, and they do get lost a lot, trust me. And that's why I started printing them in white, because my first set were black, and you can't find black at night. So I started printing them in white. So now it's easier. And actually, some of the new ones I have are printed out of glow-in-the-dark material, the phosphorescent material. So if I drop them, I can see them in the grass at nighttime because they glow. So small components, glow-in-the-dark material is fantastic for, especially when you're doing stuff at night. But that's what got me into it. And then making other modifications for my scope, like when it's cold. On my telescope, there's a clutch that you have to open and close. You have to turn the clutch to open and close it to lock the telescope, and that can be really difficult. And at nighttime, especially in winter when it's really cold, that's kind of hard to do. So, enter 3D printing. You build an adapter that goes over the clutch that makes it easy to open and close, to open and tighten that clutch, even with a pair of gloves on. So 3D printing can do an awful lot. And then now this is just astronomy. Like people out there who do their drones and all this kind of stuff. They use 3D printing to make new propellers, to make new bodies for their drones. So 3D printing has become. It used to be you had to buy the parts. Now you can just make it. And chances are somebody else out there now has probably made a design that will work for you. And so you can just find the design, download it, and print it, and use it for your use. So it's made adapting not just your printer, because the nice thing with 3D printing is you can print your upgrades in most cases, but you can also print upgrades to other things that you're doing yourself at home through other hobbies. There's a go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever design something by yourself using for the telescope?
I have. Well, I'll show you the first one, the prototype I did, and I'll show you why I don't use PLA. And then I'll show you the full version that I actually use, and it works really well. So I printed this out of PLA, and it's a holder for my Raspberry Pi, because I use a Raspberry Pi to drive my telescope. So this is a holder for the Raspberry Pi. I printed as two different parts, and the problem was this part moves, and the reason why I don't use PLA is because it breaks.
Oh,
it's brittle. So that's why I don't use PLA for real usable parts. So what I do is I tested it in PLA and it worked. Then I printed it out of PETG, and now the part won't break. It's strong.
Wow.
So now it's actually a practical part, and my Raspberry Pi drops into my case perfectly and won't fall out. And it's strong, and it withstands the elements. It's also made this design so there's a spring on it, so you can actually, instead of having to use a bolt to put on and you actually have to tighten it on each time, now it's spring mounted, so I can actually just clip it onto my telescope. I don't have to worry about, and it automatically holds itself tight. But now another aspect that's important about when you're printing and designing stuff, especially when you're printing, is the orientation of your part. So if this part I printed standing upwards, so my layer lines were this way.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem about having those horizontal layer lines is this part is supposed to move, and it creates a shear point across this across the length of the arm, which is why it snapped. This one, I printed it lying on its side, so the layer lines run the length of the part to make it stronger. So it's not just about, if you want a functional part to be strong, you don't only consider, you have to consider the material, but you also have to consider the orientation when you're printing. Because if you orientate it in the wrong way, you can actually introduce areas that are where the part will break along, like a shear line, and I don't have one on this because it was printed on its side. Now my shear point is the length of the part, so when I move it, I'm not actually moving it across one of the shear point. If it was printed this way and I move it, now it can crack along a shear line where the two layers join together. So that's one part I use a lot on with my telescopes. I have others as well that I've done, but this one I use an awful lot. It's used on every time I go out with my telescope. This is used. So I have others as well that I've used. Here's another one. It's a filter wheel. So it attaches to the telescope, and you have a camera on the other side. And then back here, you have a series of filters inside, and you choose your filter by turning the wheel. And it puts a new filter in the path. So you could, and because when you're doing photography with a telescope, you can do full color, but most people do or what's called RGB, or red, green, blue, and they'd have a filter for only red light, a filter for only green light, a filter for only blue light, and then they bring all of that together later on. So they use filter wheels for that. So this is a 3D printed filter wheel, again out of PETG to make it strong. That is regularly used when I'm doing astrophotography, taking photographs like similar to the ones behind me.
Well, I can tell that you are really using a lot of like physics knowledge into your printing to explain about like how, in what way to make it more strong and stronger.
Yeah. Well, you have to think of how you're going to use it. If you don't think about how the part is going to be used, and where, if there's moving, it's like if it's not moving, if there's no moving parts and it's like a solid piece, that's different. But when there's moving part, you have to think about the shear lines. As an example, you do something like this this has a screw on it. Now, if you print a screw like that, your shear point is across the thread, so the chance of it breaking are higher because it's got the surface area is smaller, so there's less plastic to hold on to. But if you print it, even though you have more cleanup on its side, now the layer lines run the length of the part, and now you just made a way stronger piece. So printing it the easy way is fine when you're and with less supports is great when you do not want to put it under any stress. But when you're starting to think about putting a part under stress, you need to consider the orientation of where the layers of the material are being laid down. Otherwise, you could be printing a really strong, what may seem a strong part, but you're introducing areas where it could potentially crack in the direction you're using it, which kind of defeats the purpose of what you're trying to make. I know it's easy to reprint new ones, but still, why do that if you can do it right the first time, if you put a little bit of forethought into it?
Apart from orientation, like since you are very experienced in 3D printing, can you share some of your experience of like when you start a new project or printing a new things? What would be the main parameter or things that you would like adjust or check first?
Well, if it's just printing something that's already made, I would consider first of all the material type, because it depends. Is it going to be used? Is it going to be given a practical use? If it's going to be knocked around,
Mhm.
is it going to be a chance of someone dropping it on the floor, and or whatever, or kids are going to be actually touching it or knocking it over or whatever? If the answer is yes, PLA is probably not the right product for you. PLA is really good for parts that are sitting still on a shelf, or parts are used for display. They're not really good. It's not. I wouldn't say it's the greatest part for use in anything that's going to be under stress or anything under pressure or anything like that. Now, or if there's going to be any turning, like any torque on the part, it's probably not a good idea to do it from PLA because it can break. PLA Plus is a little bit better, but again, it's still not as strong as some of the other products out there. I like PETG because it's easy. It's very, very easy to print, and as well as being easy to print, you can. It's very strong. It has. I see PETG as if you got PLA and ABS, and they married and they had a child, and the child is PETG because it has the strength and the heat resistance of ABS, but the ease of print of PLA. So that's why I like using PETG. Now, some people like ABS. ABS is a great product. I'm not knocking it. There's downsides to printing in ABS, and the downsides are the fumes. You need is one really bad area because it's very unhealthy for you. So never print it in an enclosed room that you're going to be based in, like in your bedroom or so on. Fine, if it's even if it's in an enclosure, don't have it in your bedroom. Some people do, and that's a bad idea. Have it in a different room that's well ventilated, and you need the enclosure for maintaining heat. Some of the other materials, like the polycarbonates, the really high temperature materials, like carbon fibers, they're very, very strong. But again, they have health risks with regards to printing with them. So you need to use an enclosure for maintaining temperature, but you also need to use in a very well ventilated area so you can make sure it's safe, that you're not inhaling any of the fumes from those, because they are not good for your lungs. Some of those materials can cause cancer, so you need to avoid them. And I think we have lost everyone from Geeetech. So until they join back in, I can keep going since no one else is here. It is now turned into the Liam show. But so the other thing that I think for beginners that need to start out, and before I went and got a printer, I did a lot of research. But and you should do your research before you buy a printer. Check the reviews. Check the quality, check what with end user feedback. That's very important. But one thing that's important that people, when they do get a printer, is not enough people print temperature towers. They ask online, how do I do this? What temperature do I need for this? And that's okay, but the solution is a temperature tower. And I'm going to show you a prime example of that while we're waiting for Spring and so on to join us. We have I have two parts here I'm going to show you. This is a project I've been working on. Now I have bigger versions of it. This is the sample versions of it. And this is a little dome. And the dome is printed in black PLA. And it's fairly strong. It's not going to crack easily, but it's fairly strong. Now, using the exact same temperature settings and the exact same retraction settings and everything, I printed the same manufacturer PLA. I went along and printed another part. And I printed out of the same manufacturers, but white PLA. And this is what happened. This falling apart, stringy mess. Same settings, same material, same manufacturer, just different color. Even the color of material can affect the print quality of your of what you're printing. So let's see what's. I think our guys. Yes. Okay. So the guys in Geeetech have just let me know they have lost internet, so it's become the Liam show again. So when you're doing 3D printing, make sure that you do temperature towers. It's a very important. It's not hard to learn. There are videos out there. I have a channel called Astroprinter, and on that channel, I actually have a video on how to set up a temperature tower. But temperature towers are very important. You optimize it not only for the type of material, being PLA or PETG, but it's also important when you go on to do stuff like different colors, different manufacturers. There is going to be variations between the two parts I just showed you, the black and the white one there. There was a 10-degree temperature variation to get the white to print properly compared to the black. The black printed at 190. I had to go to 200 degrees for the white to print correctly, all because of the additive. And then all of the material comes in clear to the manufacturer, like Geeetech, and then they add coloring to it when they're actually drying it and getting and before they extrude it into the spool. So the additives change the properties of that material. Now I know Spring wanted me to talk about something else, and I have mentioned that I do a lot of PETG printing for practical usable parts, but there are some areas where I would use primarily PLA, and there is a project that Spring touched on at the beginning of the show, and it was about one that I do for the sight impaired, for the blind. So these domes that I showed you are part of that. They were in my initial prototypes, and what it is because I'm into astronomy, and I do outreach with NASA. I do outreach with the Vatican Observatory. I do planetarium shows for local college. I'm a volunteer with a local college doing planetarium shows in their planetarium. And there was always an area where there was no an area of the community of the public that I could not do outreach with, and that was those who are blind, because astronomy is very visual. A lot of astronomy is very visual, and because of that, I decided to look into this, and I found that a lot of them, the resource available for the blind, were all flat. There were constellation shapes on a flat surface. It was a galaxy shape on a flat surface, and all of this, like the sky is not, to our point of view, the sky doesn't look flat. Doesn't look flat. Welcome back, ladies.
Hello.
It's no longer the Liam show anymore. But so I'm talking about this. I just started talking about the stuff that I do for the blind. So since everything's not flat, I decided to try and make a version of it that was actually curved, and I did various iterations of it. And when I got my first design done, it took a lot of time. And I reached out to the blind community, and they came back to me, and we started talking, and I started doing some testing, and I got some feedback, and the outcome has been.
Oh, I'll give you a full screen.
Okay, give me full screen. Okay, start the Liam show again. So the outcome has been these. So this is a hemisphere. This area here is a start point for someone who's blind, so they can feel a rough square where they're going to start doing navigating the night sky. So it's like a planetarium show, and they can follow along with a planetarium show by following their way through the dots. The large dots represent stars. The lines between the stars represent the shape of the constellations, and then going from one constellation to the next are tactile arrows. Show them to go this direction to the next object. So you have the Little Dipper, then you come over to the Big Dipper, and then it moves on from there over to Cassiopeia. This is the most of these are circumpolar, so they go around the North Sky always. And then this goes on to Cepheus, and then on to Pegasus and Andromeda. So it takes them through the night sky like you would in a planetarium show, but it's done for people who cannot see to be involved in a planetarium show without ever having to use, so they can't use their eyes, so they can actually follow through on this by touch. And this is one of my projects that I've been working on. It's almost done. I have a few tweaks left to do on this design, but COVID has kind of stopped me interacting with people, because people who are blind are very tactile, obviously, and because it's always hands-on. There's a higher risk of spreading COVID. So we have stopped the interaction between me and the blind community until this is resolved, and then we'll get back to it early next year, hopefully, and we can get back to finishing this off. And the goal will be at the end of it is to make this publicly available for free to any school for the blind or planetarium or college that needs to use it if they have a planetarium or a science center. So
I like this one.
the project I've been working on, and it's been a fun project. It's been a lot of work, but we're getting there. I'm almost there.
Mm-hmm. So, which one is your favorite print?
That's a hard one, because favorite prints is, I love my rockets, because I do a lot of I work out of home, right? And I've been working out of home for years. So what you see is my office. So what's behind me is when I'm on a WebEx or a Zoom meeting for work, this is my backdrop. I don't use green screens like some people do. I just have a natural backdrop. So that's kind of cool. And I like my rockets for that reason. And I do a lot of science experiments that you can actually see an experiment working through 3D printing. I don't have any of them with me, but I do a lot of those, and they get practical, real hands-on use. So I like those. But I have to say, the ones I've been doing for the blind has been, I think it's probably been the most rewarding. The other stuff is for me, or for doing community outreach with people who can see it. But I think the stuff for the blind has probably been some of my most rewarding work, because I can see it making a difference in people's lives. And like, even if you're not doing stuff like I am, you like doing small stuff like doing braille tags, little tags with braille on them to say what the switch is, or what a light switch is, what light that light switch turns on, or this is the switch for a kettle, or whatever. Small stuff like that makes a difference in people's lives. And 3D printing, not only for a hobby, but it can change someone's life through something simple. Like even parents of blind kids or disabled kids, some disabilities like autism and so on, they're not blind, but they are very tactile children, and they like to touch and feel stuff. And the more texture and the more they can get hands-on, that becomes really expensive for the parents. But if they can 3D print something that's tactile in the same way, and they can even design their own if you wish to, now you just completely change the way you're interacting with your child, and you're going to help their education, because you've gone from having to buy all of this stuff from somebody to designing or making or even just printing from somebody else's design your own stuff in your own home. And you can customize it whatever way you want to. That changes people's lives, and it brings the 3D printing community and the disabled community really close together. And that's why I would say, out of everything I've done, I'd say my tactile stuff is probably some of the biggest areas. Like my tactile moon crater, so they can actually feel the shape of a crater on the moon. Stuff like this mixes, and like NASA, these are not my design. This is from NASA. NASA has these on their website. You can they have a whole pile of 3D models you can download and print on your own 3D printer. And this allows either tactile kids or visually disabled people the ability to explore areas that are not normally available to them, because it was always visual up to now.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I think it makes a difference.
So let's say what our visitors say about our live stream, and say hi. Hello, Richard.
Hey, Rich.
Hello. Hi.
I know some of the groups online. So.
Oh, we got one question is, do you use BL Touch?
I use BL Touch only on one printer. And I think small printers don't really need a BL Touch, because it's easy to level the bed because they're short, they're small. I think anything over 300 millimeters, because of the sheer size of the bed, I think there's a higher chance of the bed being not perfectly flat but slightly warped because of its physical size. And I think in that case, a BL Touch makes a big difference, because small areas are easy to keep flat. When you go to really large print surfaces, what happens is the bed sags a little bit. The weight of the bed becomes heavier, so it tends to warp a bit more when it gets hot. And a BL Touch can actually when you use a BL Touch when your bed and nozzle is hot, you actually learn the shape that the bed takes when it's warm, and then when you're printing on it, it can counter for that. But for smaller printers, I don't use it. I have one really large printer, and it came with a BL Touch. It really helped because of the sheer size of the print bed. It does make a difference.
Okay. Let's say latest. Latest, the bottom two.
Hello, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Bottom two. He's also
Hello.
talking about.
Hey, buddy. Scott Worthington. Hey, buddy.
Hello, Scott.
I think someone said he used BL Touch.
Oh, they can. Yeah. Some people do. I just have found a small, and I have to admit one thing. I prefer to print on glass. But my beds are all glass. I have one printer that's not a glass bed, and it prints fine because it's not a really large bed. But I generally print on glass. Mm-hmm. I find that the flexible beds tend to warp more, and probably would make more use of a BL Touch because of the magnetic beds, especially because they stick onto it, and if the bed warps, the magnetic bed is going to move with it because they're metal, right? Whereas a glass bed normally won't bend with the print surface or the bed as it heats up, because the aluminum will twist a little bit, but the glass will stay flat. So I tend to prefer printing on glass. So that's why in most of my small printers I don't need it. And if it doesn't come with glass, I'll cut a mirror and use a mirror instead of as a print bed. But I see your point that some people love it, some people don't, and I think it would depend on your print surface. For glass, I've never had to need it because glass generally stays very flat. Anyway, it doesn't always follow the contours of the heated bed.
Okay. Someone say from Texas.
Hey, Texas. Hello. Howdy from Michigan.
Well, we have seen a few, say the name, it's saying Facebook user.
Because you are enter our live stream from a group, so we cannot see your name.
Yeah, it's privacy settings on the groups.
Also right.
Okay, if you comment, you can type your name also. Okay, let's see other comments.
Someone's going to bed.
Hello, Jordan.
Oh,
what's your preferred CD program?
For CAD programs, I like Fusion 360. I'm not a big CAD person, I have to admit. The hemispheres cannot be done in CAD because CAD is for more mechanical parts. I started out doing it then in Mesh Mixer, and then went on trying it in Tinkercad, which didn't work out very well. And I eventually got a program way of making it in a flat image, and then using a piece of software to take the flat image and bend it onto the dome for me. So I actually had to use some computer code to actually make it work. But it works really well. Designing that onto a dome by hand would be a slow, painful process. Doing it in any CAD software or any like Mesh Mixer or anything like that would be a very slow process. So I have actually found a way of automating it that will take from taking maybe a week to design for one of them. I can design it in an hour on a flat image, and then run my software and warp it onto the dome in 2 minutes later. So I've actually automated most of it. I've actually made it really easy. At first it was hard, but later on figured out a way of doing it via an application, a software application that actually will warp the image onto the dome for me, and then make it 3-dimensional and raise it based on its color.
Okay.
But Fusion 360 is good. Tinkercad is actually really good for beginners. You can do a lot with Tinkercad. One of the downsides of Tinkercad is you can't get a smooth curve because it doesn't really do that very well. because it does a lot of flat surfaces. Is what we. But on my YouTube, I've actually I've built I have a video of how to take a round surface that's very flat sided in CAD and turn it into a smooth circle. And it can be done. It just takes a bit of tweaking, and then you save it as a custom model for use later on. But there are ways of doing it, and you can do a lot with Tinkercad, especially if you're a beginner. It's a good place to start.
Good. Okay. Say more comments.
Hi,
Hello.
doing? Hi.
Fantastic.
Yeah, good.
Even
Okay.
glass can be wraps.
It could over time. Depends on the type of glass. I haven't found mine do, and I've been using mine for a long time. And borosilicate glass is probably the best type of glass. And if you don't have borosilicate glass as a bed, a good mirror is really good. It's fantastic because mirrors by default are made out of good quality glass, and they're very flat. Because if they're not, when you're shaving yourself in the morning, you end up looking like I don't know, a Salvador Dali for a picture if the glass warped in a on a mirror. So mirrors are really good at staying flat. If you need to go to an alternative glass, mirror is good. It gives you a good flat surface.
Yeah, I agree.
It moves because when you hit rolled aluminum, it tries to go back and to its original shape.
I agree with that. So, because that's what most beds are made out of, right? Rolled spools of aluminum. But I agree. But that's why I put a glass over that or a mirror over that. That offsets that, which is why I don't have to. I haven't used a BL Touch in much, but my large printer I use it because of the sheer size of the bed. It does make a difference there. But smaller printers, I generally find it doesn't. For me, it doesn't work. It's not necessary. But everyone has their own preferences, and if you prefer to make your life easy with a BL Touch, then have at it. Whatever works for you, is to get good quality prints is all that matters.
Yeah. Hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason. Hello, Scott.
Scott, moving over to YouTube.
This live is both on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
Jason is asking, do you prefer 3-in-1 out or 3-in-3 out extruder?
That depends on what you want to do. If you want to do just separate colors, then separate extruders can be better because you have less retraction to deal with and so on. But if you want to blend your colors, like as I do a transition from one to the other, then a single mixing head makes more sense, a print head. So it depends on your application. Now, 3 separate extruders is kind of hard to control on a printer because even doing 2 is tricky. Like with a dual print head, a lot of companies do 2 dual print heads or IDEX printers, and they can be tricky to control. But adding a third extruder or third print head becomes really tricky, and it becomes almost, I would say, it's common next to impossible to do because most boards don't even support 3 print heads. Now, but a mixing head or a single print head with 3 extruders feeding different color filament into it, you can do that. It has to be Bowden, obviously, and it would require a lot of retraction between and purging. So when you do a lot of purging, you have a lot of material wastage because you have to purge between each color you change. Whereas if you have separate print heads, you don't have to switch between. You don't have to purge because you move color 1 off this out of the way and you print with color 2. Or if they're side by side, you move this print head up and then print with 2 and then switch over and back. Like some of the really expensive printers actually have print heads that actually lift up and down, but it sits side by side on the same gantry. So I would say it depends on your application, what you expect to get out of the printer. But if you're fusing from color to color or like transitioning from one color to another, and you want to see a gradient in the transition, then a mixing head is a good idea. Or if you want to mix 2 colors, then the 3-in-1 out gives you what you need because it actually blends the colors in the print head. So it all depends on your application.
Okay. So
I have designed the Spark Mechanical 4.0.
I don't know what a spark mechanical is. I'm
I
sorry. If you can explain what a spark mechanical is, it'd be cool.
Okay, if you want to share your story, contact Spring.
Thank
okay?
you, Jordan. If you guys are watching this live streaming, you have great 3D printing experience or ideas to share, you welcome to contact me directly.
Yeah. And Jordan, thanks for your comment. If there will be some links Spring will share at the end of the stream with our links. I have a YouTube channel. It's fairly new, but you can come follow it. I've only got a handful of users, maybe 80 or so users, but our followers. But come subscribe. And there's groups on Facebook that I'm regularly in, bruv, including the Geeetech group. So come find me on there if you have questions. I'm always willing to help people out. I may not know your specific printer, but if there's something going wrong with your print, chances are we could figure out what's causing the problems you're experiencing, and over time you'll learn it yourself, which is a nice thing about 3D printing. It's a learning experience, but it's a fun one.
Okay. See others. More than one nozzle would be really hard to level.
Maybe not if you can. Some companies, there are companies out there who do two nozzles on a single area in a single bracket, but some of them have an adjustment mechanism that they lift the nozzle up and down. Others, they like in a situation of two separate print heads, like IDEX, they actually park one off to the side and then bring it in when it's needed. Others, they use one nozzle to mix. So it varies. There's different implementations of it from different manufacturers, and they all have their pros and cons. You have to figure out, by going through reviews and so on, you have to figure out what pros you're looking for and what cons you're willing to accept when you make your decision on the type of printer you want to buy.
Okay. Just adjust them to the same head.
Yeah, if there's adjustments available, yes, you can. Yes, that is the goal. But there's a bad side in that too, because if they're both the exact same height and you're printing out of one, the other one can actually impact your part. So the companies that make them where the second nozzle lifts up a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters is all. It has a servo that does that. Now there's no chance of the unused one impacting your part and knocking it off the print surface. So some of them actually implement a lifting mechanism to avoid it knocking your part. So as I said, they all have their pros and cons, and you have to figure out what cons you're willing to accept to achieve the pros you want out of your printer. You never there's no such thing as a perfect printer, ever. There's always good and bad in every printer. You have to figure out what is good, what is acceptable to you.
Okay, here comes a physics question. Is it true TPU is good for support structure and 3D printing and dissolve in water afterward?
TPU? No, TPU is a rubbery material. So there are dissolvable materials, and the dissolvable materials are good. Some stick really well, and there's actually, I think it was Currency Fabrications. I can't remember which one of them, but one of the other guys who does reviews online, I think it was Currency Fabrications. He did a video, or no, it wasn't. It was Stefan, the guy in Germany. He did one, and he actually did different types of support materials. And one type, when he put it in water, dissolved completely. And another one that he put in water came out as goo, stuck to the part that you have to scrape out. So I would say look for videos like that before you make a decision. Now, what some people do, if you're doing a dual extruder or dual print head, they only use this dissolvable material. They're printing PLA as an example. They'll print the supports in PLA, but only where the PLA and the part meet, where the two parts combine, they put the dissolvable material only in that piece. So they don't use as much dissolvable material because it does cost a lot more. So they use it only in that interface between the part and the supports, and then the support is actually printed out of PLA. So that way, then it's cheaper because doing a lot of dissolvable material costs a lot of money. So the support interface as a dissolvable material is probably the right way, is probably the better way to go. You use more PLA, but you use less of the more expensive dissolvable materials.
Okay. From Jason?
I don't have an A30T, so I don't have an answer for you. So maybe it'd be better off for
Yeah,
for
can
the
join
lady.
our group, and in our we have a, let me share.
Yes, we have Geeetech 3D printing user club. You can join our Facebook group. There we have many users that share their stories and also ideas.
Okay, I wanted to share this. We have
Another group is multi-extruder printers. So you can join in this group.
Yeah, here we have more users here share their experience here, and also yeah.
I'm in that group too. I may not know all of the hardware, but if it comes to quality of printing and so on, I can help out.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, William, how do you think of our Geeetech PLA?
I use it a lot, actually. I have two spools right here, and I have more outside in my other room. I just brought in some spools here. I use it a lot. I actually my glow in the dark material is actually Geeetech.
Can you show us some of the prints you have done with Geeetech PLA?
This is Geeetech PLA.
Oh.
This is the black Geeetech PLA. As I said, I do a lot of prototyping with PLA. Like this is an extension arm for a spool holder, and I left the supports inside of it to make it stronger. So you don't always have to remove supports. Sometimes it can help the part. But this is Geeetech PLA. So is this, which is for mounting a tablet, an iPad, onto the telescope as well. But that's Geeetech PLA. So I use it a lot. And as I said, I use it mostly for prototyping because I want PETG in my final parts if they're going to be outdoors. And a lot of what I do is going outdoors, is going to be handled, is going to get knocked around. So that's why I use PETG for that. But for in-house stuff or stuff that's not going to leave my home, stuff that's going to be on a shelf, that's going to be just to put that to look pretty, like most of the stuff behind me. A lot of that is a lot of PLA, except some of the rockets. Some of the rockets I do in PETG because I know they're big, they're heavy, they need to be stronger.
Yeah. So basically, your idea is using PLA for prototyping, and then if for specific thing that you need to be like durable or other function, and consider other material.
Yes, and most of them, as I said, I go mostly with PETG because PETG is easy to print with. I can print PETG wherever, like all the PETG parts I showed you, such as like this. This is super smooth surface. PETG. No stringing. I don't have to do any cleanup on it. I just take it off the bed and use it. So if you do a fine tuning of your settings, like your temperature tower, your retraction settings, and so on, and your speed. The reason why I prototype with PLA is PLA you can print really fast with. So you can get your prototypes, your samples out fast. You can test them. If it's not right, you tweak the design, you do it again. But because you have to print PETG much slower, half the speed.
So do you have any suggestions or tips for printing the two different materials, the parameters you are setting when doing slicing, or settings?
Parameters and so on, I wouldn't say there's much difference between when you're talking about the outer walls and so on. There's no real change, no real change there between PLA and PETG or other materials. It depends on how strong you want the walls of the material. Like one layer, which is going to be a 0.4 millimeter in most cases of a wall, is no good. Right? It's like putting a piece of paper sticking onto the side of your part. It's too soft. You'd want at least three. I would say at least 3 walls, if not more. If you wanted it harder to take some impact, you'd probably go to 4, maybe 6 walls. I think your infill is very important because different types of infill have different strengths. So the 3-dimensional infills offer more strength to your part than the normal straight lines and so on. So consider what stress or what pressure you're going to put on the part. With PETG, which is one I print mostly with, I would say always print the first of all, never print PETG straight. A lot of people say they do it, and every time I hear it, it makes me cringe. And they've gotten lucky so far, but I bet there's lots of people here have seen glass beds or built-tack beds or flexible beds or whatever, all destroyed by PETG because it bonds so well to the material that getting it off, you end up breaking the glass or pulling the glass off as well. So always use a release agent of some form, be that hairspray. I don't use hairspray. I actually use glue stick, but glue stick I find really good on the bed because, and it's not only to make the PETG stick, but when the part cools, it separates the PETG. It puts a barrier between the PETG and the glass. So when you take it off, you don't destroy the glass. And I think for any surface, you need to have a release agent for PETG because it bonds so well that it ends up damaging the part afterwards, your build surface afterwards. I also say your first layer of PETG, with the way I print it, I only print it at 15 millimeters a second, really slow. And your distance for your nozzle should be a little bit more than what you do for PLA. Like PLA, you have maybe 0.2 millimeters from the bed to the nozzle. I would say 0.3 is probably close to what I'd use for a PETG. Raise it a little bit more because you want to lay it down, not squash it to the bed. I would say, and then so 15 millimeters a second for the first layer or first 2 layers. Every layer after that for PETG, I would say 30 millimeters per second. I wouldn't go much faster because you end up getting really bad quality prints because it needs time to stick. The maximum cooling fan you should ever use for PETG is 30%. You go over 30%, you're cooling the material too fast, it doesn't stick, and you get very brittle parts. So if you can print without a fan at all, it's better to print without any fan if you can. Unless you have overhangs or bridging, you can use a fan there, but avoid it if you can because it makes a much stronger part.
Thank you for your suggestion.
And let's see new comments.
Sure.
I print on all kinds of beds. You can share this. You can share this story with us, Context Spring Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hairspray, white down. Any release agent will work.
Windex. Good.
I haven't used Windex, but I'll give it a try, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. And yeah, actually, William mentioned that you are an astronomy hobbyist.
I am. Scott's not.
Like how what devices do you use for?
Oh, you want to see my telescopes?
Yes. And did you 3D print your telescope by yourself, or did you buy it and assemble it?
Well, I don't 3D print a telescope because 3D printing has introduced flexure because plastic bends. So let me share my screen.
Sure.
So one moment. So there is, you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a wooden telescope. It's a handmade telescope. There's no 3D printed part on that. It's all metal. It's wood and metal. Now there are some components I add onto it that I made out of 3D printing, like a little brackets and so on, but not an awful lot. Most of that is actually made out of aluminum tubing and actually Baltic birch plywood. And that's a handmade scope. Now, this other one, let me see if this will work. Will it work? Let me click here. This is another telescope. Now, the other one is 5 feet tall. This is 8 feet tall. It's a much bigger telescope. There are some components on there for, if you see, can you see my mouse move? You can. So on this here is a finder scope. There's actually some brackets on there that are actually holding the finder scope, and I've made a few other small components for that are 3D printed. And that's again is a big manual telescope. And most of the stuff that I talked about the clip-on brackets that I mentioned earlier on, that I kind of showed you earlier, they're actually made for this one. So here you see my hand controller in the bracket that I showed you a while ago, right here. There's my Raspberry Pi casing that I showed you, actually clips on right here underneath the telescope. So all the wires come down the telescope out of the way. And that's 3D printed. The tablet holder I showed you would clip onto one of these legs also. That is also 3D printed. The laser, the white laser adapter that I showed you that is done in PLA, that actually would clip on up here on top. That again is a 3D printed part, and the clutch part that I have here would go onto, see this little silver clutch part right here? This has to be turned to loosen and move stuff around. So this would actually go on over that to make it easy to turn in winter, or like when you're wearing gloves and so on. It just makes opening and closing those clutches easier. There's 2 of those on that telescope, and so these actually make that easier and make it work a lot easier. So there's a lot of components on that I've used and added parts to it that have been 3D printed over time. Like this here in the front is a filter for the sun. That one there is one I made initially out of paper or a card, but I've 3D printed a plastic one that takes that place. So it actually goes over the front with a filter paper in it, special filter material called white light filter that actually filters out 99.9999% of the sunlight, so you can actually look at the sun safely through the telescope. So I've done a few parts, especially around my telescope, as I said, that have all been 3D printed. There's many other pieces as well, but there's just too many to name. Like my filter wheel that goes on here at the back between the camera and the telescope would actually clip on here, and the camera would attach to the back of that, which would be this device. Again, 3D printed.
Jason said, have you ever printed in wax?
No, I've never tried. I've never had need to do any casting, and I don't have a forge to print do my own metal casting. But I've known people who have, and it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. It's like printing any material takes practice, but apparently wax takes a little bit more because you're printing at such low temperatures. And again, you need to print somewhere that's ventilated because wax, when melted, does give off fumes. So I have never tried it, and I haven't had need to, but it would be interesting to try.
Yeah, we had a user asking how much did your device cost?
Oh, if you take away the telescope part on the top, the white part, the long tube on top, the telescope, you take away this part of it, just the tripod and this head is about $3,500.
Well, that's expensive.
And that's without the telescope.
Okay. How about do you think we can build one by ourselves?
This no. Well, if you were good at, if you had a metal workshop and you were a good design engineer, you could probably do this. I would say the one you could probably build yourself would be where is it? You could build that yourself.
Okay.
You could buy the mirrors because it's a reflector. It uses mirrors, so you could buy the mirrors and build it and build everything around it. You could have to buy some components, but you could build most of that. As I said, that's handmade. The really big one is also handmade, but it's handmade by a company. But it's only 2 people in that company, and they make these. And that's another expensive telescope too. But
how much is the
handmade? Sorry.
How much is this cost?
This
one cost
a lot more than the last one. That one there is about to buy one of those new was about $12,000.
Wow.
We have a joke in astronomy that especially if you're into taking photographs and taking photographs using my setup here, using this type of setup to take photographs of the night sky, it gets really expensive when you want to get really, really good at it. And the joke is you should get your kids into astrophotography because they'll spend so much on astronomy equipment, they'll have no money for drugs or alcohol, so they'll have clean lives. They'll be broke for it. They never afford drugs or alcohol.
Mm. Okay.
we already said that.
Any other questions?
No other question. I just shared your links to our comments here. So if anyone interested can just directly get in touch with.
Let me quickly show them the all sky camera.
Yeah, sure. You can share the what you can.
Now, most of this all sky camera, all of the housing and everything was 3D printed. Even the mounting brackets, because it's running with a Raspberry Pi inside in it. But it's a camera that's set up to look at the night sky 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I'm a geek and I can't help it. So I do silly stuff like this. And on the all sky, let me drag it up here. It's cloudy here today.
Star is expensive hobby.
It can be, but this is not very expensive. Now I don't know how it was raining today, so the dome needs to be cleaned. Well, it can be, but let me share my all sky camera. This is the live view of it right now. So the clouds are starting to clear out. You see some stars showing up. You see it?
Let me add.
Yeah, so you can see some stars showing up. There's Mars, the planet Mars, starting to show there. But in my all sky camera, you can overlay the constellations. So you can see the constellations marching with the stars, and there's time lapse video on there as well. Let's say this one, and because it takes pictures throughout. That's got storms in it. Let's find one with no storms. It takes that's more rain. Let me find one without rain. Maybe this one. So it takes pictures throughout the whole night, and then turns them into time lapse, so you can actually watch the stars move through the sky during the night. And those long streaks you see are actually either airplanes flying over or the International Space Station flying by. So you can actually watch the stars move through the sky at nighttime. And it's run by a Raspberry Pi. A $35 computer does all of this work.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, and it's and you also have. I also like the fact that it gives you star trails, so you can actually. It takes the pictures of the stars. Over a period of time and builds beautiful star trails as well. And again, a $35 computer does all of this work. The Raspberry Pi. So those lines are the paths the stars take through the sky each night. And there's a series of about 1,500 pictures, all merged into one to show the path of the stars. So it's kind of cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to get into the hobby, you can watch William's video.
Well, again, if you have questions on it, like I know I'm on the 3D. I'm also there is 3D printing for astronomers out there. There's a group for that. So if you want to get into 3D printing and you're into astronomy, there's actually a group out there for 3D printing for astronomy. There's also lots of astronomy groups out there online that you can join to ask questions on. I'm in a fair few of them, not all, but I'm in a fair few. And if you have other questions, and you want to ping me directly, find me online in the groups, in the Geeetech groups, or in some of the other printing forum groups. Drop me a message. I'm happy to discuss it with you if anybody wants any input on either printing or astronomy or anything like that. I'm happy to help out.
Okay, I have one advertisement here. So if anyone wanted to be our speaker in 3D Maker Salon, you have great story in 3D printing or great story that innovations, ideas to share with more people and great ideas worth sharing, welcome to contact me and we will discuss it online.
Spring will make you famous.
On our website.
Yeah, and we will also have small gift for you. Okay, what's more is that we will ask one last question for William. We know that you have been very helpful in the 3D printing community, and you also have work and also doing astronomy project. Can you share with us how do you manage your time and what is your life purpose?
How do I manage my time? Very badly. Well,
For hobby and 3D printing and
well, 3D printing doesn't require a lot of time because once you have a print and it's started, you can walk away from it and let it finish, right? So 3D printing doesn't take a lot of time unless you're doing prototyping, you're doing multiple iterations, right? But in most cases, it doesn't take a lot of time. Once you have your printer dialed in and you know you can print, and you watch the first layer goes on flawlessly. You start the second layer and it looks okay, then you can walk away and just do spot checks. So I 3D print during the day while I'm working because I walk by my printers when I want to go get a coffee or anything like that. I walk by that area, so it's not a problem. And I have multiple printers. Sometimes they're all going at the same time. But astronomy is nighttime. So your daytime job and your nighttime job don't really collide. And since it is nighttime, and I have a job in the morning, astronomy is mostly either for a couple of hours outside the front door at my home in the evenings, or if I want to spend a lot of time doing stuff, it's a weekend. You do it on a Friday night and a Saturday night. You don't do Sunday night because you got work Monday morning, right? So it's out down to time. And the worst thing is I'm in Michigan, so if you do in Michigan, the weather changes nonstop. If you don't like the weather in Michigan, you wait 5 minutes, it's going to change. So it changes an awful lot in Michigan. And we get lots of rain. So you could have a beautiful, clear Monday to Friday. There could be no clouds. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it could be totally clouded over. And it's clear again Monday night. So it's a crapshoot. You take your chance. You check the weather forecast. You hope for the best. If it's clear, you do astronomy. If it's not, you do 3D printing.
So you have various options.
Well, you deal with what you got. It depends on how nice Mother Nature is to you.
Yeah. Nice setup.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now we are going to have an exciting session for our audiences on live. If you,
I'm going to have to change one of the questions, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mention it.
Okay. More comments from our users. More comments. Like the weather in England, it always changes to the white to more wetness.
More wet. Yeah, I agree. That's Michigan's like that.
In England.
Well, I'm Irish, so I know exactly what it's like because we're right. I grew up right next door in the country, right next door. So.
Yeah. Okay. Another from Jason. I've been working with local schools to introduce 3D printing to kids. how do you suggest to introduce making an item on a CAD program quick enough to print it in a reasonable time?
I would say there's a couple of good ones out there. There's really easy ones. I think Tinkercad is a really easy stuff to start with. It's basically drag a block over that's a solid, drag a block over that's an empty space. You merge them together. You take one from the other, right? So kids get that. There are a few others out there. I can't remember any off the top of my head, but Tinkercad is a really easy one to use for starting kids out if you want to start them into doing basic design. But a lot of schools are starting to do that now as well. Maybe not really young kids, but when you get into middle school and high school, a lot of schools are starting to introduce some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Also, for your printings, that in astronomy interest, like, can you tell us about like normally the time you have you print with, like the shortest time and longest time of your prints?
I've printed everywhere from stuff that takes maybe 30 minutes for something small, like like these can take maybe an hour, but I've done like some of these can take up to 9 hours to print. Or sorry, 9 days to print. Sorry, not hours.
Mm-hmm.
I printed these. It's run for 9 hours or 9 days to print one of these, because you need to print it solid in case people drop it. And I do out of PLA, and there's a lot of nuances, a lot of little bits and pieces, little edges, and so on. There's overhangs. Some of it you have to print with supports. So in that case, that they can take up to 9 days to print. So I think the longest prints I've done is up to 9 days, but anywhere in between from 30 minutes up to 9 days, it varies. It all depends on the size of the part and the complexity of the part. The more move, and also the speed of what you're printing with. PLA can print a little bit faster. That in PETG, I haven't tried it yet, but I'm guessing it'll probably about 14 days in PETG because it's half the speed, right? So.
Okay, so we basically have had a great sharing session with you, and now we're going to have some quiz and answer session for our audiences to send some gifts out and also to warm up the session.
Okay, so let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question. I'm going to do them in a different order for a reason.
Sorry. So for anyone who is new to this, so this session is a quiz session that we will ask 3 questions in total, and for each question we will select one who answer the fastest and the right one to get our gift. So our gift is one filament, so Geeetech filament. Yeah. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask an easy one first.
Your comment.
So, I'm going to do them in a different order. So, what is the type of filament I mainly print with? I've mentioned it a few times, and the reasons why. So.
Yeah. William said many times about the filament. Okay. Spring will copy the question to the comment. You can answer it quickly. We have 30 seconds delay, so we will wait and see what our audience will answer. Okay.
We already have one correct answer.
Cool. PETG, that's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Please go to Facebook and contact Spring to get your gift. okay? Because you are coming from YouTube, entering our live stream from YouTube. On YouTube, you cannot contact Spring. Okay, next question.
Okay, next question. I'm into science. I'm a nerd, so I'm going to ask a nerdy question that's not related to 3D printing, but I have mentioned it a few times. Let's see if anyone gets it. Since I do a lot of science outreach for NASA JPL, and I use 3D printing, as I said, to do some demonstrations and so on. What do the letters JPL stand for in NASA JPL? Sorry, I had to add a sciencey question in there because that's what I do.
Yeah. So I'll repeat the question. What do the letters JPL stand for? You can search on your internet and
Yeah,
comment.
if you Google NASA JPL, it will explain what JPL is.
Okay.
Guys, this is the quiz session to win gift. So if you are still with us, you can give an answer.
Okay, Jordan already gave answer.
That's correct.
Okay.
Congratulations,
Congratulations. You get the second gift.
Yep. My NASA ID.
Right.
Okay. So
our rule is one user, one chance. Okay. So if you already answered correct for other gifts, please give other users the chances. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Question 3.
okay, question 3 is going to be the easiest of them all, right? Because we touched on it a moment ago. What has been the longest print I've done for a single part? I'll give you a hint. It's over my shoulder.
Okay. What was the longest time that William used for his print?
Easiest question of them all.
Okay, we will wait for some other answers. Time delay.
So we mentioned that a few minutes ago, just before we went into the question section.
And we are asking about the time.
Sorry, or longest time for a single.
Yeah, what is for a single part that I've printed? What is the longest time to print that one part that I've done? And I mentioned it a few minutes ago when we were talking about printing these in PLA.
Okay, you can just guess your
Join us
answer.
next time. Oh, we have
Anyone
one
close?
answer.
You got a correct answer?
I think so. This one.
Yes. Jason was listening. Yes, 9 days. It took me 9 days to print one of these. They are 30 centimeters in diameter.
Great.
Yeah, great.
You get the gift. Congratulations, Jason. And please contact Spring to get your gift. Okay. Above are the 3 answers we have for this episode's quiz section. And if you want to get gifts, you can join our live stream each week on Friday or Saturday. So please like our Facebook page and join in our live stream at each week. to win our gifts. Okay, so next is our advertisement time. Since Halloween is coming, so we have a promotion for Halloween for US users on Amazon, and that is for the filaments, white, black, and orange PLA. You can get them at 30% off.
Glow in the dark. POA.
Oh, sorry.
Black, white, glow in the dark.
Yes, and you can get white and black at about $16.
Glow in the dark PLA.
Yes. Yes. Get them at $16. And for glow in the dark PLA, you can get it at about
18. About 18.
Yeah, 18 US dollars.
I'm going to share the.
Spring will share it in comment. This is the promotion for Halloween for US. So William, do you have any plan in the this recent days for the future?
Any which?
3D printing projects.
Yes.
I'm because of COVID. I'm thinking about printing a monster's face out of the glow in the dark filament that I have, and because you don't want to be interacting with kids. You make just running the chance of getting them sick. So I'm thinking of making a monster's head, and inside it put the candy. So they have to put their hand into the monster's mouth to take the candy out.
Oh, so you are also planning for the Halloween.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning to. I'm thinking of doing. I have to find the right design yet. I'm not good at designing that kind of stuff, but I have to find a design. And if I find the right one, I'll print it out of glow in the dark, so it will actually glow with a sign over saying "candy" in his mouth, and you have to put their hand into the monster's mouth to get the candy.
Okay, great. Okay, next we were our next promotion is for our French users. The Prime Days, sparkly PLA, like blue, purple, silver, and you can get it at about 20 euros. And the Spring will share it in our comment.
Actually,
Okay.
It's
19.99. Okay, so next is also for PLA, that is silk PLA, and marble and blank, and for this one, the prices are different. The copper, gold, silver, you can get it about 20. That is 19.99 euros. And for marble PLA, about 21 euros. And for blank verse, you can get about 17 euros. Yes, that's only valid for today, and we will also share it on our page. You can check it on our Facebook page.
Yeah, I'm sending it out.
Okay, Spring already shared it in our comment. You can check it, or you can check our post later on our Facebook page. Also, for another one is Prime Day, also for the filament, white and silver. You can get it at about 17 euros instead of 23 euros. Also only valid for today. Mostly the promotion are for the filaments. If you are interested in our 3D printer, we also have the discounts on our official website. So just go to our official website, geeetech.com, and check the 3D printer you like. Okay.
So I think that's almost the end of the live streaming for this week. And if you have anything to say to William, you can write comments here or also contact him directly.
Yep. Or you can check out my YouTube or check me out on Facebook or whatever. I'm happy to work with you if you need if you have questions and so on.
Yeah, I will share his William's information here again.
Yes, and if you want to be our speaker, you can contact Spring and talk to her about your story, and also you can also apply on our official website.
Yes. Thank you very much for watching this live streaming with us, and also, most importantly, thank you, William, for joining us, for giving this really wonderful sharing, and also sharing about your really awesome printing in astronomy and your stories, the project, I think the very wonderful project for the blinds, helping people out, and for the community.
And there's more coming. More plans as well.
Very nice to combine your hobby to 3D printing and make 3D printing more meaningful and useful. Maybe some people may say 3D printing is not that helpful, but I think it's just because they have not find the ways that they can use for their life and also for their work and hobby and anything like that.
Yeah,
so if you have any interest or hobby that you can combine with 3D printing, you can also use it and share your story with us. Okay. And thank you again for joining our live stream. Let's end our live stream. See you next week.
See you next week.
See you.
Bye bye. Enjoy printing.